Right, so this is Roy's Road, and we're headed to the Roy's Road boat ramp, not for any particular reason, but we just like to have a little bit of a walk around there and see the Pumice-Stone Passage and all of that. I was just thinking, when we were kids, Steve Larkham used to play for West or Lynham or whatever it was, and they'd come across, like when we go across there to play, or if they came across to the Vikings to watch Nathan play, because of course they were the same age and opposing halfbacks a lot of the time, and all of that. But I remember very well that you and Geoff Larkham, Steve's father, appeared to be very good mates.
Oh, we're still good mates.
Yeah, you always had a laugh and whatever when you saw one another. So how did you become friends with one of our most famous ever footballers' fathers, Steve Larkham he's a big deal, Steve Larkham, in the rugby world.
Oh, yes. Well, when I was in Canberra, I played A-grade football with Canberra Royals. But in 1966, I got a bit fed up with some of their selection tactics, so I moved over to Lynham, and Lynham was a team that had been around in second division or second grade for years, but they had no A-grade team. So this year, 1966, they were promoted to the A-grade, and I went there with a chap from Wagga called Ian Rawlings, who turned out to be a very great footballer. Milo was his nickname. Milo went and played with Hull Kingston Rovers and played outside the magical Roger Millwood and Flash Flanagan, two of the great English test players. So the first couple of games that I played with Lynham, it was outside Ian Rawlings, but there were two or three other guys who once they heard that Milo and myself were moving over, they went too. They were A-graders, and so all up there were about four of us who had significant A-grade experience. But Geoff Larkham was he was a second rower. He's a big guy and very polished player. Certainly an A-grader by the time. See, they all came through as sort of 19, 20-year-olds, and they had a couple of old heads, but generally they relied upon getting a bit of a spine from other clubs, and I was part of that spine, I guess. But anyway, Geoff and I became pretty good mates because I had an MGB and he had an MGA, which I think was a white one, if I remember. But he and a lot of the players in Lynham at the time had sports cars, so
that was a big deal back then, wasn't it? Having a sports car and playing rugby, it meant that you had lots of girls like you, especially if you had mahogany shoes as well, right?
Yeah, well, our coach at the time was a guy called Hollywood George Edwards, who'd come from St George in Sydney, and he was a wonderful coach. But the thing was, he had things like speedboats and a few goodies that we used to all be able to access. We'd go down to Bateman's Bay, and we'd all there were enough sort of sports cars to take everybody down there. We'd go and have these great times. And I don't know, Geoff married, I think her name was Maureen.
That's right.
And Maureen had been a friend of mine for quite a while. Just I don't know how or why, I just knew her and knew a couple of other girls just as friends. And
she's a really nice lady too, Maureen, isn't she?
Oh, very, yeah. She's one of the best. And well, that's why I liked her. No, she was never a girlfriend material for me, but I had never even thought of her that way. But she was just a good friend. And I can't think of the name of the another girl I used to hang around with a lot. Anyway, I still kept in touch with Geoff for some years after, but mainly because of Steve, I think. Steve and Nathan would play against each other right up until I think Nathan left it under 18s.
I remember Geoff, didn't he recommend that Nathan should come across the line and play with them when Nathan was about 18, but Nathan wanted to stick close with his friends or go to the local club because it wasn't as far as Lynham or something, but I think that would have been a good thing if he'd gone out there, to be honest.
Well, I know Royals wanted Stephen as a halfback.
Well, no, this is later with Nathan.
Oh, with Nathan.
But Nathan played against Steve Larkham, not Stephen.
Oh, that's right, yes. Yeah, that's right. Nathan was a very good breakaway, which was a very classy breakaway. But because they didn't have a halfback, he played halfback even though he was 6'2", 6'3".
Nathan was a great halfback.
But the one thing you'd never see Nathan do is drop the ball. He never, ever, ever, in any game I ever saw him drop the ball. He could do anything. He could carry it 1 finger, 2 fingers, 1 hand. He would never, ever drop it. So there was one day there where he was up against Steve Larkham, and Steve Larkham was underneath his own goalpost, and he miskicked the ball. He was trying to kick the ball for touch halfway up the field, but he miskicked it and went straight across the goal line. And who should be lurking right out on the sideline but Nathan. Nathan just caught it and placed it down, scored a try. It could have been anybody else in the Vikings team at the time. I doubt if they would have caught it. But for Nathan, it was just a walk in the park. He was a gift. But no, he had a sister too. Steve Larkham had a sister. I can't think of her name, but you could see Geoff's face in it. Geoff was a fairly good-looking fella. Over and out.